Never assume a comet is just a comet, especially not this one. Before you scroll, subscribe. Because what we're about to talk about feels like the moment right before a secret finally slips out. There's something in our inner solar system right now, and it's not behaving like anything we've ever logged in the history of astronomy. Its name is 3I Atlas, and the deeper you look into the data, the harder it becomes to believe this thing is natural. 3I Atlas is not from here. It came from interstellar space. It entered our system like a visitor with a purpose, not a passenger drifting by accident. And every few days now, new data is coming in that forces scientists to rewrite their notes from scratch. Because this object shouldn't be glowing the way it is. It shouldn't be accelerating the way it is. It shouldn't have a coma almost half the diameter of our sun. And yet, somehow, it does. Researchers watching it from July to August began noticing something so bizarre that even the most skeptical voices stopped trying to brush it off. The plasma around 3I Atlas is building layers, not random layers, structured layers. Like something learning as it travels, like something responding, like something adapting. And then during the September lunar eclipse, the object turned green. Not faint green, not a simple chemical reflection, a saturated, emerald green radiance. But here's the part that makes scientists freeze for a moment before answering questions. The chemical compounds that should produce that color are not present in the levels needed to cause it, meaning the glow is coming from a process we do not understand. This isn't just a weird comet moment. This is something behaving in a category no one has seen before. A newly published paper states this might be a completely unknown class of interstellar object not fitting comet, asteroid, or dwarf body definitions at all. Its polarization readings are the most extreme negative values ever recorded. That's not opinion, that's data. And as it slings closer toward the sun, nearing perihelion, it's on pace to reach almost 68 kilometers per second. That's faster than any other interstellar visitor ever tracked. Think about that number. Try to imagine that speed. Try to imagine the forces involved. Whatever 3I Atlas is, it's not passive, it's not shy, and it's not quiet. It feels like something arriving with intention, and it's only getting closer. And the strangest part is, the closer it gets, the more structured it becomes. Polarimetry readings don't just show dust anymore. They show pattern, like a double layer, like an organized plasma shell, like something with information holding itself together in an electric field. Imagine a cocoon that isn't just gas, but a cocoon that might be storing memory. Even the researchers who don't believe in anything beyond rocks and gravity are starting to say the sentences that nobody wanted to say first. This doesn't match anything we've ever studied. And this is where it gets even more unsettling. Because this isn't just brightness. This isn't just color. This isn't just speed. 3I Atlas is interacting with the solar wind in a way that looks more like feedback than passive behavior. Meaning, it's not just being pushed, it might be pushing back. And now everyone wants to know the same question. Is this an object that formed under conditions we've never imagined? Or is this an object that was engineered? And here's something most people don't even realize is happening behind the scenes. There's already a Mars-orbiting probe being positioned to try to capture images of the actual nucleus, because right now we don't even know how big the core actually is. Some models say it's small, maybe the size of a city block. Some say it could be 50 kilometers. Think about the difference. One of those is a rock, the other is a world, and yet both are still possible. Earth is safe for now because we are on the opposite side of the sun during perihelion. But that also means something else. We can't directly see it at the exact peak moment because the sun blocks our view. For almost 3 weeks, we are blind. No telescope, no direct imaging, no live tracking, just math and faith that when 3i Atlas emerges from the other side of the glare, it will still be following the same trajectory. Because if it's not, if something changes while we aren't watching, we won't know until after it already happened. And that thought alone keeps a lot of smart people awake at night. If this object is natural, then we are witnessing physics that don't belong to this solar system. If this object is not natural, then the question changes completely. It becomes, who built it? And what do they want? And the closer we get to perihelion, the less those questions feel like sci-fi. They feel like the moment right before the lights turn on in a room you didn't know you were standing in. They feel like we are about to learn something that humans were never supposed to learn this soon. 3i Atlas isn't just arriving, it's revealing. And what makes all of this even heavier to think about is that this isn't happening in the quiet outer solar system where nobody notices. 3i Atlas is inside now. Inside the region where the sun's electric field is strongest. Inside the region where tiny changes create massive consequences. And something you almost never hear mainstream news mention. The inner solar system is not empty. It's an electrical environment. Dust carries charge. Plasma carries information. Fields interact with fields. This isn't the cold mechanical space we were taught in school. This is a system with feedback and responses and sudden shifts. And this object, 3i Atlas, is living inside that system right now. Its coma isn't just big, it's growing in ways that don't match sublimation. A normal comet grows because ice turns to gas, simple. 3i Atlas grows like something reacting to conditions in real time, almost like an antenna expanding its range. Polarization data doesn't lie, the signature isn't random. It's structured, layered, double-layered, like a plasma sheath that wants to stabilize itself. Do you see how weird that is? A natural object shouldn't want anything. A rock shouldn't adjust. A comet shouldn't behave like circuitry. And yet every new reading makes this thing look less like a frozen leftover from somewhere else, and more like a device, or a fragment of something bigger, like a shard from a machine, like a broken panel from something colossal. And here's something even more unnerving. Its phase angle polarization curve is so extreme and so unique, it doesn't even live on the same graph as normal comets. Astronomers literally had to redraw the axis. It sits alone, isolated, off the chart. Exactly the kind of thing that doesn't fit anywhere. So what are we supposed to call that? Do we call it a comet because that word makes people calm? Do we call it a visitor because that sounds poetic? Or do we finally admit 3i Atlas is something our classification system is not built to describe? It's like trying to explain a smartphone to someone who has only ever known rocks and fire. There aren't words yet. There is only evidence, and the evidence is saying, whatever this thing is, it's not behaving like a comet at all. And here's the part hardly anyone is emotionally prepared for. 3I Atlas is about to hit the most critical moment of its entire journey, perihelion, its closest moment to the sun. And this time it matters more than any moment before, because this is when everything that makes it strange becomes amplified. The plasma signatures, the negative polarization, the green glow, the expanding coma, the odd chemical depletion, the insane velocity, 68 kilometers per second. All of those go up when it gets closer to the sun. Every weird thing about it gets more weird. No comet behaves like this. No asteroid behaves like this. Nothing we've ever seen behaves like this. And at the exact moment we should be watching the most, the entire planet Earth will be blind to it. The sun blocks the line of sight. The glare buries it. We will have no eyes on it. Think about that. This thing, whatever it is, will undergo its most extreme transformation, while every telescope on Earth is basically useless. There will be no time lapse, no images, no spectrograms, no fresh measurements. The only data will be whatever it chooses to show us after. And if it changes shape, if the coma collapses, if it fragments, if it reveals a physical structure under the plasma shell, if it turns or adjusts course, we won't see any of it happening in real time. We will only see the result. Perihelion is the moment where either everything we've suspected is confirmed, or everything we've feared becomes real, and it's approaching fast. This isn't a wait months type moment. This is days, hours, then blackout. It is like watching the door of a vault slowly open, and at the exact second the light begins to reveal what's inside, the lights go off. We think we're the watchers, but in this moment, we are the ones being forced to wait. Almost like we're not meant to see what happens next. Almost like whatever 3I Atlas is, it knows exactly when to move. Almost like it prefers the darkness. Because if you think the strange part of 3I Atlas is just its color or its speed, that's only surface level. The real story is inside the coma. Most comets have a coma that behaves like smoke in space, just dust and gas expanding outward in a chaotic puff. But 3I Atlas has architecture inside the coma, patterns, layering, a double shell structure like a nested field. Astronomers studying the polarization noticed that the inner region and the outer region behave differently, almost like two separate systems stacked on top of each other. That is not random. That is not typical chemical outgassing. That is more like engineered plasma behavior, like a plasma field with function. And the plasma cloud is not just large, it's absurdly large. Half the width of the sun, half the entire star. Do you understand what that means? If this thing was parked on one side of the sun and the sun was parked in the middle, its cloud would reach halfway across the star's diameter. There is no other known interstellar visitor that has done that. Not even close. And now add this part. That cloud is also charged. Not neutral, meaning 3I Atlas is interacting with the solar electric field in a way that our comets simply do not. When most comets get closer to the Sun, solar wind pushes tails backward away from the Sun. But 3I Atlas has this strange forward-facing structure, like it's pushing energy ahead, not just behind. Scientists don't want to call it a beam, so the official terminology becomes vague. They call it anomalies, directional polarization spikes. But the shape is there. The thing is behaving like a craft, adjusting its forward field, not like a stone melting in sunlight. And here is what scares people quietly off camera. This means it may not be reacting. It may be responding. If that forward-facing region is controlled, it means 3I Atlas is not just being affected by the Sun. It means 3I Atlas is managing its approach toward the Sun, because only machines adjust direction like that. Nature does not. Because the moment researchers started to admit this object might be active, everything else about it suddenly felt different. 3I Atlas isn't just drifting, it's navigating. And the strangest proof of that came during the September lunar eclipse. When the Earth went into shadow, 3I Atlas changed color. Green. But here's the catch. Green coma glow in normal comets comes from diatomic carbon being broken apart by sunlight. But 3I Atlas is depleted in those carbon species, meaning the thing is glowing with a color it shouldn't even be able to produce. It's like a car with no headlights suddenly lighting up the road. Scientists ran out of natural explanations. So quietly, privately, many of them considered the only remaining possibility. The glow is coming from processes we don't understand. Something chemical or something technological. And here's the twist no one online seems to realize yet. The green glow didn't just appear randomly. It's synchronized. It pulsed, almost like telemetry, almost like a signal handshake, a marker being broadcast. And this handshake happened right as the object was approaching the region of highest electric field alignment of its entire orbit. Meaning it did this exactly where a craft, not a rock, would want to change state. The timing was too perfect, too meaningful. Like someone flipping modes from passive drift to active status. And now we enter the part nobody in the news wants to say out loud. We built a Mars probe to image it specifically for this pass. Not for fun. Not for curiosity, but because deep down, someone already suspects this object is not geological. They suspect 3I Atlas is not a comet at all. And here's where the story gets even stranger. Because once the green glow started, the coma began to expand. Fast. Polarimetry data began showing that the plasma envelope around 3I Atlas wasn't just growing randomly, it was forming structure, like concentric shells, layered. Engineers recognized that pattern immediately. That is exactly what you see in electric double layers in plasma systems. The same physics used in controlled ion propulsion, in laboratory plasma confinement, and even in certain classified drive studies. Not natural chaos, organized fields. 3I Atlas began showing a 2-layer separation in its coma, with charged dust on the outside and a denser inner shell closer to the nucleus. Dusty plasma doing information-rich behavior. That's the phrase NASA used. Information-rich. Because the orientation of the layers changed, synced with solar wind variations. like something was using the solar wind, not being shaped by it. That alone is enough for some astrophysicists to say privately. This thing is behaving like a field-adaptive craft. But we're not done, because while the coma expanded, optical brightness remained stable. That should not happen. If an object suddenly releases dust and gas, it should brighten. It didn't. That means the brightness isn't controlled by dust release. It's controlled by power emission. Brightness from electrical excitation, not just reflected sunlight. In other words, 3I Atlas may be turning itself on without anyone admitting it publicly yet. The largest coma radius recorded, half the width of the Sunday. Half the width of the Sunday. If the coma is truly that large, then this thing isn't just a rock. It's more like a mobile energy field, a shield, a field envelope, a containment layer, a system, not a chunk of frozen ice. And the timing is perfect because perihelion is when the inner solar system has maximum electric field gradients. So if something wanted to charge up, it would do it here. If something wanted to activate, it would do it here. Perihelion isn't the danger. Perihelion is the ignition point, and we're days away from watching it blind behind the Sunday. Now let's slow down and talk about what makes this moment so insane, the speed. Because 3I Atlas is fast. Not fast like a comet. Not fast like an asteroid slingshotting around Jupiter. Fast. Like nothing we've ever tracked entering the inner system. Official estimate at closest approach, 68 kilometers per second. 68. To put that into something your brain can actually visualize, that is faster than the Parker Solar Probe moves when it's diving toward the sun. That is faster than any engineered spacecraft humans have ever launched. It is nearly unfightable by gravity. Nothing slows it. Nothing redirects it. No gas jets. No venting. No visible tail thrust. Yet it curves like it knows where the ecliptic plane is perfectly aligning with it. Do you know how rare that is? Even interstellar comets like Borisov missed the plane by a huge margin. Oumuamua was weird, but it didn't hug the plane like a guided system. 3I Atlas is flying through the inner solar plane like it was aimed at it. Like it was using the electric field lines as rails. And that terrifies scientists. Because if you're dealing with interstellar rocks, they come in random angles. They fall like darts thrown from the roof. They don't follow the chalk lines drawn on the floor. But 3I Atlas is following the chalk lines perfectly, like it was designed to navigate within a star system, like it's been here before, or like systems like ours are normal to it. That is why some researchers are whispering underground, not on camera, not in papers, but in private telegram channels, that 3I Atlas might not be an object that formed near a star at all. It might have formed between stars in cold void, where chemistry works differently, where metals freeze in impossible crystalline shapes, where plasma processes dominate, not gravity. They don't dare call it a craft. Not publicly. So instead, they call it a new class of interstellar body, which is just a polite way of saying, we don't know what this is, and we don't want to say the wrong thing. But the question that hangs over all of this, the question nobody wants to ask out loud is this. If this is not a natural object, then what is its purpose? Because everything about 3I Atlas's behavior looks intentional. It's timing. its alignment, its activation near perihelion, its plasma shielding, its energy-efficient track. Objects don't act with purpose. Intelligence does, and here's where things get even stranger, the green glow. Because this is the detail that pushed a lot of quiet, maybe it's natural, scientists into silent panic mode. The green color around 3I Atlas does not match the chemistry that should produce green in comets. Normally, when a comet glows green, it's because of diatomic carbon, C, being broken apart by sunlight. Basic comet textbook stuff. But here's the problem. 3I Atlas is depleted in the chemistry required to make that glow. It doesn't have the carbon levels to explain it. It shouldn't be green. It should be dark, or maybe dusty white, or maybe a weak bluish iron glow. Instead, it lit up neon green, like a bioluminescent creature in the deep ocean, like something turning on. And it didn't begin green. It turned green. That's the nightmare part. It changed. Not slowly, not randomly, but abruptly, like a response, like a trigger event, almost exactly as it began entering the region of space where the electromagnetic field of the sun grows dramatically stronger. Meaning something reacted, not sublimated, reacted. Diatomic carbon didn't spike. Nothing chemically normal explains that glow. The official interpretation that finally went into the papers, the safe sentence, the line that protects reputations, was this: unfamiliar chemistry is likely responsible. That sentence is basically the scientific version of, we have no idea what we're looking at. And here's the wildest thing. That neon glow is not uniform. It has structure, internal layers. It has double plasma boundaries like the electronics we build to store charge, like a capacitor. 3I Atlas isn't just glowing, it's holding charge. Who or what needs a capacitor the size of a small moon? Because that's what this coma is, half the diameter of the sun. Nobody, I mean nobody, has ever seen a plasma envelope that massive around an object this small. And the more data we collect, the more uncomfortable the conclusion becomes. This thing isn't behaving like a visitor. It's behaving like something preparing for a state change, or a phase transition, or a function. Before we go deeper into that, this is the part that scientists are whispering about behind closed doors. Because when polarimetry revealed that double-layered structure inside the coma, they realized something horrifying. 3I Atlas isn't just shedding dust, it's organizing it. There are patterns in the plasma distribution. There are rotational gradients. There are regions that behave as if they're aligned, not random. And when you zoom out far enough, you get something that looks eerily like a controlled field, not a natural cloud. Almost like the dusty plasma around it is being arranged the way humans arrange sand on a vibrating plate, like cymatics, like a blueprint. Think about that for a second. What if the structure we're seeing isn't the object itself, but the field around it? And here's where time slows down. This is the detail that most people don't know. Polarization signatures don't just tell you what's there, they tell you how light is being processed. 3I Atlas is bending polarized light in a way that suggests ordered domains. That means Something is sorting molecules by charge. Random comets don't do that. Dust doesn't self-organize at scale at 68 kilometers per second unless there is a guiding field. Some researchers quietly have started calling 3I Atlas an interstellar plasma processor because that's what this looks like. It looks like the coma is acting like a giant adaptive shell, a buffer, a shield, or a machine. Call it whatever metaphor makes you comfortable. This is where the fear creeps in. Because when Stefan Burns made his statement about the coma being half the diameter of the sun, that wasn't poetic. That is a literal scale. This thing is surrounded by a field that stretches wider than Jupiter's orbit. And in that field, water ice particles are freezing, melting, reordering, forming complex layered crystals, like instructions being written. And you have to sit with that. We are looking at an object that might not be a body, but an architecture. And it's not slowing down. It's accelerating. As if what it's heading toward matters more than what it passed by. NASA publicly downplays the data. Privately, the cadence of meetings has tripled. That isn't random. Institutions don't accelerate for nothing. You can literally feel the tone in scientific circles changing. And here's something else. The closer it gets to perihelion, the closer it gets to the electric field maximum. The more structured the plasma envelope becomes, like it's charging, like something is priming. We're not close to the climax yet. We're barely halfway. Mars was supposed to be just another checkpoint, just an orbital intersection. Nothing special. But when 3I Atlas crossed Mars's orbital zone on October 3rd, every agency that pretends to not care quietly aimed their instruments at it. Because Mars was the only location in this whole trajectory where Earth wasn't blocked and the sun wasn't blinding the view, this was the last safe angle before the object began slipping behind the solar glare. And suddenly, almost overnight, the talk of a Mars probe camera package went from concept to urgent priority. Nobody announces that on the news, but the observatories leaked hints. The tracking time sold out instantly. The teams in charge of Mars telemetry were told bluntly to prioritize unpredictable targets. That means one thing. Somebody expects something to change. Now, here is the part most people don't realize. From Mars's angle, the coma was even larger than expected. Polarimetry from Mars orbit didn't just confirm the double layer. It revealed subtle filament structures, like filaments inside filaments, braided threads, and the glow wasn't uniform. There were zones, pockets, where the green glow thickened like fog, then thinned, like something pulsing inside it. Mars's vantage point finally made something undeniable. This thing is not merely evaporating, it's evolving in real time. The coma isn't just expanding, it's restructuring itself as it moves closer to the Sunday. Like the environment is a trigger, like proximity to intense radiation is activating a new phase. And here's where scientists went silent. One spectrometer sweep showed a strange signature, a spike, not noise, right in the band that corresponds to ionized oxygen transition. Not water, not CO2, oxygen, ionized, meaning it was interacting with sunlight in a way our comets don't. And then the strangest line in the entire internal report. Is greater than field behavior, resembles guided confinement. Guided, confined. Those words are not used for natural dust. They're used in plasma engines. They're used in magnetic containment design. They're used in fusion physics. And they never get used casually. So Mars wasn't just a flyby. It was the moment where the tone changed. And after that, everything went quiet. The official statements dried up. NASA and ESA both shortened their public updates. And inside the community, people whispered, is greater than, we won't know anything else until after perihelion. As if perihelion isn't just a milestone. As if it's an activation event. So now we are closing in on perihelion. And this part is not Hollywood drama. This is physics. This is where space stops being empty. Because near the sun, the electric field is not mild. In deep space, the electric field is weak because there's nothing to distort it. But close to the sun, it becomes like a river. A charged, spiraling hurricane of ions, electrons, and magnetic tension. And 3i Atlas is flying straight into that river like it's meant to be there. That's what's creeping people out. Because nothing this weird should behave this perfectly aligned with our ecliptic plane. It's only to 5 degrees off, and it has held that precision all the way from the outer system. No comet does that. No random rock holds that kind of alignment for this long without drift. That's navigation-like. And perihelion around October 29th is the first moment when this thing will be fully inside the most chaotic energetic zone in the inner solar system. Think of it like this. Being in the empty heliosphere is like floating in quiet air. Perihelion is like stepping into a plasma storm, where the sun's electric field actually sculpts ions into tails, jets, currents, and 3i Atlas already shows plasma double layers. That alone is insane. Double layers are like an electric membrane. They separate charges. They create barriers. They store energy. They behave like circuits. And a double layer system this massive half the diameter of the sun is not just gas. It's structured, growing, becoming more complex, which brings in the part nobody wants to talk about. This could be a system, an information system. Burns even hinted that the plasma plus ice plus CO2 mixture allows complex crystallography, like the coma might form information-dense structures. That is not poetry. That's literally the language used in plasma computing research papers. So perihelion is not just its closest moment to the Sunday. It might be the moment where whatever this object is finally interacts with the field it's been traveling toward for years. And that begs one awful question. Why does something from interstellar space need to plunge into the strongest electric field in our system? What does it want there? Because if this is just a rock, why does it act like a thing that's waiting for a trigger? And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because the moment we're actually in right now is the part where 3i Atlas goes completely invisible to us. This is what astronomers call the blind window. It happens when an object moves behind the sun's glare, and every ground-based telescope becomes useless, even most space telescopes. That blind spot lasts from mid-October until somewhere around mid-November, meaning right now. We have no direct way to observe what is happening to it. No optical confirmation, no reliable polarimetry, no updated nucleus measurements, no shape updates, nothing. Everything we get now is speculation or automated projections from old trajectory models. This is the point in the story when everyone, even the scientists, are watching in silence. Because this is not like a normal comet that we can track all the way. This is an object that is glowing green without the chemicals that should make it green, accelerating faster than expected, growing a coma in ways no one understands, reflecting sunlight in an impossible negative polarization curve, traveling at the fastest recorded speed of any interstellar object, and now we are blind to it. This is the worst possible moment to lose sight, because if something changes right now, we literally wouldn't know until after it already happened. If the nucleus fractures, we won't see it. If the plasma sheath collapses, we won't see it. If it slows down, we won't see it. If it changes course, we will not see it. If it changes course, we will not see it. And that's why this era of the observation is so haunting. Because this is the first moment where we might get a real clue of whether this is an actual natural object or something engineered. And the irony is, if the most significant change happens at perihelion, the moment when the sun is blasting it the hardest, we will not witness it in real time. We must sit here and wait for it to re-emerge, blind, like humanity is staring into a closed door, and something on the other side is deciding what to reveal and what to hide. Because the moment 3i Atlas comes back into view, there are only 3 main outcome categories that astronomers are preparing for, and each one leads to a completely different future. And they're all terrifying in their own way. Scenario 1, nothing changed. It comes out looking the same coma, same glow, same trajectory. And honestly, this is the least likely. Because this object has already been changing every step of the way and accelerating in ways that shouldn't be possible. Scenario 2, the coma expands massively. Astronomers worry about this one the most, because if its dusty plasma sheath suddenly balloons, that means something within its interior reacted to the extreme solar radiation. And an expanding coma, especially this close to the sun, means the object is interacting with energy in a way no normal interstellar ice ball should. Scenario 3, it breaks or reveals structure. This is the nightmare scenario. If the nucleus splits and the internal shape is geometric, flat-layered or metallic-like, then nobody, and I mean nobody, can call it a comet ever again. That's the line. That's the moment the world changes. Because that would mean this was never an ice rock. It would mean this was built. And this is why astronomers are quiet in interviews lately. This is why data is suddenly under review. This is why some measurements are pending verification. Because they know, and they won't admit it publicly, that the most interesting events will likely happen right now, while it is invisible, and when something hides behind the sun and then returns, it never returns the same. You don't get blasted by trillions of joules of solar wind and remain unchanged. Every object in space is shaped by radiation. But 3i Atlas? It isn't behaving like it's being shaped. It behaves like it's responding. It behaves like it's adapting And that is the exact detail no one wants to say out loud. Scientists don't like to use emotional language. But when they talk about the polarization anomaly of 3I Atlas, you can hear the discomfort in their voice. Because polarization isn't eye candy. It's not a color. It's not a brightness thing. Polarization is a signature of structure. It tells you how light interacts with surfaces, which means it tells you about the texture, the shape, and the arrangement of whatever that light is bouncing off. Comets have a very standard fingerprint. Dusty ice, fractured, random, porous. Their polarization curves fall in the same boring family. But 3I Atlas? No. Its polarization curve is not just abnormal. It's violently outside anything ever recorded. It doesn't slope like a comet. It doesn't scatter like dust. It drops into negative polarization, harder than anything we've ever measured. So far into the negative that one researcher said it would require a totally different class of material. And here's where this gets insane. That kind of negative polarization happens with surfaces that are ordered, not random, not chaotic, ordered. Think plates, think arrays, think sheets, think layers. Almost like the surface isn't naturally formed by collisions and time, but arranged, engineered. And when this anomaly was first announced, it didn't trend, it got buried. Scientific papers went quiet, updates slowed, because this is the exact kind of data that changes outer space rock into non-natural object. This is the kind of measurement that crosses the line from weird space geology into possible technology. And here's the part that makes this even darker. The polarization wasn't static, it was changing, which means this object isn't just passing through, it's actively reacting to the environment around it. It's interacting with the Sunday, and the last time we saw it cleanly, before the glare swallowed it, it was turning green. And the green doesn't match the chemicals we expect. So now the question becomes, if it's glowing in a way we can't explain and scattering light in a way nothing else does, what exactly is the surface made of? There is a moment in every scientific mystery where the mystery stops being a puzzle and starts to feel like a warning. With 3I Atlas, that moment was when researchers realized its coma wasn't just gas and dust drifting around like a normal comet. It was structured. It had layers, 2 layers, an inner envelope, and then a second bigger envelope around that inner one. That double layer pattern is not random. It's the same pattern we see in plasma confinement. It's the same geometry that shows up in electric double layers in systems where charge separates itself into zones. That kind of structure forms in high-energy environments, but it also forms in engineered systems designed to manage or store information. Plasma physicists noticed something else too. In that layered coma, within those zones of ionized dust, there were spatial gradients, meaning the material wasn't evenly distributed. It wasn't a messy cloud. It looked like it was arranged with purpose. Some thought maybe we're seeing internal chemistry reacting to sunlight. But here's the issue. Nothing in its composition matches what would produce this arrangement naturally. Water ice? It has some carbon dioxide? Yes, we know that's there. But the crystallography, the arrangement, the directional symmetry, it doesn't match typical cometary crystallography. One researcher said this almost casually in a paper footnote. It may be capable of encoding complexity. That sounds like pseudoscience until you break down what it actually means. Complex crystallography plus plasma double layers equals potential information storage, meaning this thing may not just be passing through space. It might be storing something, holding something, carrying data. Imagine a crystal USB stick floating through interstellar vacuum, wrapped in a plasma shell that protects it and makes it invisible to basic telescopes. That's the level of weird we are dealing with now. And then another detail slipped out quiet, unnoticed by most of the public. The inner coma, the layer closest to the object, is getting denser. The outer coma, the huge halo, keeps growing. And each growth phase is not linear. It expands in jumps, like pulses, almost like a system, charging, then releasing, then charging again. Like a capacitor, like a machine, like a cycle. Whatever this object is, a comet doesn't behave like this. An asteroid doesn't behave like this. And natural debris does not act like a device. Next, we go into its speed, how fast it is moving, and why that speed is physically insane. And why faster objects leave something behind them that we never expected to detect. 3I Atlas is currently predicted to reach about 68 kilometers per second near perihelion. That number is easy to read, but it's not easy to emotionally understand. 68 kilometers per second is so fast that in the time it takes you to blink, this object has moved the length of a small city. Imagine something flying past Mars that is moving so fast that even if you pointed a telescope at the exact coordinates, you could still miss it, because it outruns your exposure window. Speed like this is not casual. Speed like this means momentum. Speed like this means trajectory commitment. This is not drifting. This is not wandering. This is traveling. This is movement with a purpose, like a courier, like a probe, like a messenger that cannot afford to slow down because the delivery matters more than the journey. And here's where things get uncomfortable. When objects move this fast through charged environments, they leave electromagnetic wakes. Not visual trails, not dust streaks, electric fingerprints. We already detected faint electromagnetic disturbances along its projected path in September. Those disturbances were small, but they were real. Almost like the object is dragging a boundary behind it, like a boat dragging a hull through water. But space isn't fluid, right? Actually, in plasma, it behaves like fluid. So if this thing is wrapped in dusty plasma, then this thing isn't just an object. It is an electrical participant. Its presence changes the medium around it. And that brings us to one of the scariest implications of all this. Because if something is interacting with a solar electric field, then it is reacting to something larger than gravity. And if it reacts to that field, then it might be intentionally leveraging it, like a ship surfing currents, like a machine riding an invisible ocean. That would explain the turn. That would explain the weird acceleration. And that would explain why we do not have a natural category for this. We might not be looking at a rock. We might be looking at a system built for interstellar travel. And we just happened to catch it, mid-function, mid-journey, mid-mission. Now the part that shook me most is not its speed. or its coma, or the green glow. It's the timing. Because the moment it hits its closest approach to the sun, we lose visibility. We go blind. We cannot see it. And if something were going to change, if something were going to happen, if something were going to reveal itself, that window is the moment. Because every scientist who has been honest off camera has quietly admitted the same thing. If 3i Atlas is going to transform, if it's going to shed, if it's going to split, if it's going to open, it will do it while we can't see it. Right behind the Sunday, right when no telescope can track it. Right when Earth's entire side of observation is blocked by pure solar glare. That's the part that keeps people awake. Because this isn't just a moment we don't have data. This is the moment where data can't exist. We have no instrumentation on the far side. We have no relay probe in the right orbital angle. We have nothing positioned out near Mars that can continuously stream imagery when it goes into conjunction. For several weeks, we will be blind. Blind while an unknown origin object the size of a skyscraper rips through the most electromagnetically volatile zone in the inner solar system. And remember, this isn't guesswork. NASA trajectory tables confirm. Earth is physically on the opposite side of the sun during that window. Meaning even if it changed direction, even if it slowed down, even if it accelerated again, we won't see it until after. Which leads scientists into two terrifying possibilities. Possibility 1. It survives perihelion unchanged and exits the solar system like a bullet on a path that suggests it was always just passing by. But possibility 2, and this is the one that actually sparked internal debates, is that this object uses perihelion as a maneuver point, not like a comet flaring, more like a craft braking, a solar gravity assist, because the sun is the perfect engine. A civilization capable of interstellar travel wouldn't waste fuel. They would use stars as turning points, as brakes, as pivots. So the question becomes, when 3i Atlas emerges, will it still be leaving? Or will it be staying? That's the nightmare scenario. That's the open loop. Because if it is not a rock, then perihelion is not a passive moment. It is the moment, the fork in the trajectory, and we won't know what it did until it's already done. Here's where the story shifts from weird into, this shouldn't even be physically possible. Because one of the strangest measurements we've ever recorded of any object in the solar system comes from 3i Atlas's polarization data. Polarization is basically the way light waves twist as they bounce off something. Every known type of object has its own signature. Comets have one pattern, asteroids have another, dust clouds have another. But 3i Atlas? It has the most extreme negative polarization curve ever recorded, meaning light doesn't reflect correctly. It reflects backward, almost like the particles around it are organized, almost like information is encoded in the dust. Yes, encoded. This is why plasma physicists, not comet scientists, get obsessed with this object. Because the coma, the cloud around this thing isn't just getting bigger, it's organizing into layers. 2 clear layers. Like a double plasma shell. That happens in electric double layers. In lab reactors, not in normal comets. We've seen this exact formation before, but only in controlled containment experiments. So something out there is structuring itself. And here's the part that's now making the rounds privately. Under certain plasma conditions, crystals form. Information crystals, meaning matter, can store logic. And because 3I Atlas has water ice and carbon dioxide and charged particles surrounding it, there is a real possibility that this comet-looking thing is capable of holding structured information, not like a computer, more like a library or a seed. Imagine this, a physical object that stores data in dust activated by starlight. Now combine that with the fact this thing came from outside the solar system, and now it's glowing green. In a wavelength it should not be glowing in, because it does not contain the chemical normally responsible for that glow. So something is happening inside that coma that is not natural to our periodic table chemistry. Something is reacting there, the way nothing here reacts. And you know what the toughest part is? We are running out of time to observe the change, because in just days it passes behind the sun, where we can't see anything. So the entire world is holding its breath, waiting for perihelion to finish. And here's the real problem. We're about to go blind. Because once 3I Atlas swings behind the sun, we lose direct line of sight. Telescopes can't see through the Sunday. Radio dishes go silent. Infrared sensors become useless because solar flare noise drowns everything. We won't know what it's doing for days, maybe weeks. This is the moment in every space mission profile where you hold your breath, because sudden changes tend to happen right at perihelion, right at that moment when an object skims the inner edge of the sun's magnetic chaos. We saw this with sun-grazing comets. Most of them vaporize. Some break apart. But 3I Atlas isn't a normal comet. It's traveling faster than anything ever recorded. Its coma is larger than half the diameter of the Sunday. It's glowing green for reasons no one can explain. So now, here's the fear. If the coma is really storing information, if this double-layer plasma structure is deliberate, if this is not geology but engineering, then perihelion isn't just a moment of heating. It could be a moment of activation. It might be a trigger point, and we won't be watching. We won't see anything. All we can do is wait. Now, think about this. During this blackout window, during this blind side, Mars is in prime position to measure it. The Mars orbiter cameras, if they actually do what they say they're going to do, could capture high-resolution frames of the nucleus. But there's a rumor going around, whispered, not officially spoken, that if the nucleus is artificial, we won't be told. Because if 3I Atlas is not a natural object, if it is a carrier of information, if it is some kind of interstellar data seed, then someone, somewhere, is going to lock that behind closed doors immediately. And here's the darker thought that scientists won't say out loud, but they are absolutely thinking. Artificial objects don't drift casually. Artificial objects have destinations. They go somewhere. They have missions. And if this thing came from somewhere, then something sent it. And if something sent it, then something must be expecting it to arrive. The real fear is not what 3I Atlas is. It's what waits at the other end of its trajectory. Here's where things shift into the unknown. Because after perihelion, after it passes behind the Sun, it re-emerges on a path that leads straight toward Jupiter. And Jupiter is not just a giant planet. It's a radio beacon. It's a cosmic amplifier. Its magnetic field is so insanely strong that it creates natural radio emissions that can be heard even from Earth with certain antennas. We already use Jupiter as a kind of giant lab for electromagnetic behavior. So here's the question scientists are whispering in closed-door groups. What if 3I Atlas is using Jupiter? Not to crash into, not to slingshot around, but to communicate through. Think about it. If you wanted to send a low-power signal across absurd distances, you wouldn't waste energy building a power source bigger than a city. You would hijack a cosmic battery. You would use something like Jupiter as your transmitter. And the green glow? Remember, it's not carbon emission. It's not from the usual comet ingredients. This green glow is coming from something unfamiliar. It could mean that the plasma inside that coma is tuned, like a carrier wave. You could encode information inside that field. You could store it like a living drive. And when the object passes near the right kind of electromagnetic host like Jupiter, it could dump everything, like a download. Imagine this. For millions of years, this object drifts between stars, gathering data, mapping fields, scanning biospheres, measuring atmospheres. And then when it reaches the right terminal node, it uploads a cosmic memory stick, a courier, a messenger. And we, tiny humans, are sitting here thinking it's just some ice chunk with attitude. Meanwhile, the big question is not what is 3I Atlas. The question is, who is waiting on the other side of the upload? Because here's the true nightmare scenario. Scientists aren't saying publicly, if this thing is an information carrier and it uploads, that means somewhere out there, something expects it to arrive. Something expects a report. Something expects data. And if something expects data, that means we were the target, not by accident, not by coincidence, on purpose. They wanted to see what's here. They wanted to see who lives here. They wanted to see if we answer back. NASA internally already knows the Mars orbiting probe assignment is the quiet trigger moment. This is the point where everything that's been theory suddenly becomes real data. They aren't scanning the coma just because it's pretty. They aren't tracking polarization just because it's new science. They're trying to see the nucleus. Because the biggest unanswered question, the one that's kept teams awake, is this. Is 3I Atlas a solid object, or is it hollow? Because if it's hollow, even partially, that changes everything. Comets don't form hollow. Asteroids don't form hollow. A hollow structure suggests architecture. It suggests compartments. It suggests intentional design. And NASA engineers are already terrified of that possibility because they know the coma is already making it almost impossible to see the core. That enormous expanding shell, half the diameter of the Sun, is like a shield, a natural camouflage. Some scientists call it a dynamic plasma obfuscation layer, a fancy way of saying it hides whatever is inside. And here's the part nobody wants to admit out loud. If this coma is plasma-based, not dust-based, which the polarimetry suggests, it could be controlled. Plasma is programmable. You can bend it, shape it, compress it, discharge it. That double-layer polarization isn't random. It looks like active field management, meaning this thing may not be moving through the solar wind. It may be steering through it, like someone figured out how to sail electromagnetic oceans. Like someone out there discovered the trick we haven't even touched yet. Propulsion without engines. When you start to see it that way, the comet theory becomes the least likely explanation. And some insiders already said quietly one sentence that keeps echoing in my mind. This thing isn't trying to hide from us. It's trying to hide from something else. Maybe that's the part most people are missing. We keep assuming we are the center of the story. But what if we aren't? What if this isn't about Earth at all? What if 3I Atlas is not coming to us, but running from something bigger, and our solar system just happens to be a checkpoint in some enormous unknown chain of cosmic way stations? That lunar eclipse moment changed everything. Astronomers expected scattered dust, random swirling chaos, the kind of cloudy brightness you always see around comets. But instead, patterns appeared. Symmetry, straight lines, geometric seams. This wasn't poetic imagination, this was data. Some observers described it like fractured panels. Others said it looked like rotating tiles. One researcher, anonymous, literally said this: "It looked like something was opening. And that green glow? It wasn't supposed to exist." Traditional green comet glow comes from diatomic carbon C2 reacting near sunlight. 3I Atlas barely has any carbon like that. So why is it glowing green? NASA's plasma guys have one terrifying hypothesis, quietly passed around behind the scenes. The green is a byproduct of charged surface ionization, like something powering up, almost like a status indicator light, like an ignition phase. When you think about the timing of that glow, it doesn't feel accidental. It turned green right as the coma expanded to massive scale, and right as polarization values dropped into extreme negative behavior, like it switched modes, as if it entered a new state, a new phase. And if it did, then all of this might not be passive. It might be active. The growth of the coma, the double-layer plasma behavior, the green ignition, all happening right before perihelion, which is where we are right now. Days from peak solar proximity. We are watching this thing approach the sun at almost 68 kilometers per second, the fastest interstellar visitor we've ever recorded. And all the unusual behavior is happening before it hits full solar heating, meaning we still don't know what happens at maximum energy. What happens when the sun becomes not just a heat source, but a trigger? Will the coma collapse? Will the field intensify? Will the inner structure reveal? Or will something else happen? Something we don't even have language for yet? Because here is the question that is quietly haunting the labs. What if perihelion isn't the end of its transformation? What if perihelion is the beginning? As the days count down toward perihelion, a strange shift begins happening inside the conversation. At first, scientists only whispered it privately. Then leak after leak made it impossible to ignore. Multiple observatories in 3 different countries reported that the polarization pattern of 3I Atlas is no longer stable. It's oscillating, like a pulse, like a heartbeat, and the frequency of that pulse is increasing as it gets closer to the Sunday. One researcher described it as this: "It's like something inside is waiting for a signal." This is where the mood changes, because comets don't do that. Ice doesn't oscillate like that. Dust doesn't coordinate like that. The only things we know that pulse in patterned frequency are machines and biology. Even spectroscopy data went sideways. The coma didn't just get bigger, it became structured. Filaments, strands, like braided plasma cables. Some frames even captured repeating spacing, almost like ribbing or scaffolding. And when someone overlapped the coma filaments with the object's rotation period, they synced. Which means this isn't random turbulence. It's synchronized to the nucleus rotation, which means it's intentional, or at least mechanical. And now, this is the part no one wanted to say on camera, but the numbers left no escape. As of the last clear measurement, 3I Atlas is not decelerating. It's speeding up. It should be losing momentum when it bleeds off mass. Instead, it's gaining velocity. Same signature we saw with Oumuamua in 2017. Acceleration without any thrust mechanism, no jets, no sublimation spikes, no mass loss burst, just speed. And here is the dark detail that made several analysts freeze. The peak of the acceleration curve lines up almost perfectly with the moment of perihelion, like a timing event, like a scheduled maneuver, like a burn window. This is the thing that finally broke the denial, because if perihelion is the moment it switches state, then 3I Atlas may not just change physically, it may change direction, meaning this whole inbound trajectory might not be a pass-through. It could be a rendezvous, a course correction, a turn, and suddenly the green ignition theory becomes terrifyingly realistic. Because what if this isn't a comet warming up? What if this is something powering on? This is where the mood goes cold. Because in the physics community there's a phrase, a joking one, scientists say it in sarcasm when weird data appears. They call it the mothership moment. A moment where something stops behaving like a rock and starts behaving like an object with purpose. Up until now, that was always a joke. But right now, no one is laughing. We are standing on the edge of that moment. Tell me to continue, and I'll take you into the moment of perihelion itself. The second the object hits maximum solar field intensity, the second the event horizon of its behavior becomes impossible to explain away, and the second where we find out whether this thing is a freak of nature or a machine. And now we are here. We are close enough that there is nothing left to do except wait. No telescope can see it clearly anymore. The glare of the sun has taken it away from us. 3I Atlas is behind that wall of brightness right now, surrounded by more electromagnetic force than anywhere else in the inner solar system. If it is just a strange interstellar rock, then it will pass through, curve back out into deep space, and fade forever into darkness. But if it's not just a rock, if it turns, if it stabilizes its rotation, if the green glow intensifies instead of fading, then the story of 3I Atlas changes forever. Not a comet, not an asteroid, not a mystery, but something with intent. Something that carries information. Something that reacts. Something that watches. So right now all we can do is breathe slow, stay patient, and wait for the moment when it re-emerges from the sunlight glare and we finally see what shape it comes out with. Did it activate? Did it change course? Or did it simply continue on its path into the void? We are not in control of this moment. We are simply witnesses. And the most terrifying part of all is that if this was designed, we were always meant to see it. If you want to follow what happens the moment this object becomes visible again, hit subscribe now and watch the next video that's appearing on your screen right now. Tell me your theory in the comments.